Hello, welcome to Hevsel Weekly. In this week's episode, we will talk about how the Palestine-Israel war is sliding toward Lebanon, what John Kerry spoke about at the Climate Summit in New York, why fossil fuel companies are withdrawing from the advertisement industry, and the arrival of cosmonauts after 374 days at the ISS. Stay tuned. As the war between Israel and Palestine intensifies, the war is sliding toward Lebanon. Recent military attacks on the Israeli-Lebanese border have raised concerns, and people are afraid that these conflicts will draw Lebanon, which is already in danger, further into war. Hezbollah, which is a political party organization in Lebanon, is a target group, and it's known that Hezbollah had started conflicts on the Israel-Lebanon border to prevent them from concentrating and harming Gaza. Still, these conflicts had never spread to an area like Beirut, where the majority of the population is civilian. Israel has carried out intense airstrikes on Lebanon in recent days, leaving more than 600 people dead, according to the Lebanese Ministry of Health. It is said that they seized devices such as pagers and walkie-talkies going to Lebanon, caused explosions in Lebanon, and carried out many airstrikes during the day. Because of this conflict between Israel and Lebanon, people from both countries that live close to borders are trying to run far away. Politicians made their comments on this issue as well. For instance, Biden touched upon this issue in his recent United Nations General Assembly speech, highlighting civilian casualties in Gaza by saying that thousands of people were killed in Gaza and the remaining are dislocated and living in tents. He also stated that countries should sign on to his ceasefire plan, and even though the situation escalated, he believed that a diplomatic solution was still possible for countries. Moving on with politics, former United States Secretary of State and climate envoy John Kerry criticized the fact that not even a year has passed since companies and governments made agreements in Dubai to move away from fossil fuels, but still they are using fossil fuels as before. He spoke at the Climate Week NYC Summit in an Axios event, and when he asked to give fossil fuel companies a grade for their efforts to transition to clean energy, he asked, "Is there a letter underneath Z?" The summit held under the shadow of Donald Trump, who has called climate change a hoax and is likely to be re-elected as US president in the November elections, is focused on renewable energy and climate finance. Approximately 100,000 government leaders, business people, scientists, and activists attended the summit. One of the participants, Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Davis, stated that he was tired of promises and wanted to see action now, and complained that richer countries were not complying with the agreement and that countries were not fulfilling their promises on climate finance as they promised. Continuing with another climate-related news. According to a new report, while there are more than 1,000 deals between fossil fuel companies and major advertising companies, the global momentum is to avoid new deals. It all began in June when UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres identified the advertising and PR industries as key enablers for the fossil fuel industry, calling on agencies to abandon these clients and governments to ban advertising from fossil fuel companies. The campaign group Clean Creatives has an annual list that shows the carbon-based energy sector's reliance on marketing agencies, and it's called the F-List. This F-List report shows a total of 1,010 fossil fuel advertisement deals have been signed between the years 2023 and 2024. Of these, 692 are new, while the remaining 318 are holdovers from last year's list. The findings of the report highlight the fossil fuel sector's reliance on a mix of independent agencies and leading advertising and PR firms. However, the inclusion of more agencies on the 2024 F-list does not necessarily mean more agencies will take on fossil fuel work, according to the Clean Creatives Group. The campaign found that 15% of agencies have reduced their work with fossil fuel clients, and 74% do not currently work with fossil fuel clients. The Clean Creative study found that the rate at which independent agencies are exiting fossil fuel work has sped up this year. Next in line, we have space news. Two Russian cosmonauts, Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chup, have left the International Space Station after 374 days. This means they narrowly beat the record set by NASA astronaut Frank Rubio, who spent 371 days aboard the ISS last year when his spacecraft had a problem. It also means that Kononenko 6E has broken the record for the longest time spent in space with 1,111 days in orbit. The cosmonauts, along with Tracy Caldwell Dyson, who spent 184 days in orbit, landed in Kazakhstan on September 23 in Russia's Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft. But spending so long in low gravity took its toll on their bodies, so they were removed from the capsule with the help of recovery teams. Without the constant pull of gravity on our limbs, muscle, and bone mass begin to rapidly deteriorate in space. The muscles that help us maintain our posture are the ones most affected. In microgravity, they barely have to work anymore and begin to atrophy. The astronauts' bones also begin to demineralize and lose strength. This can increase their risk of fractures and increase the time it takes to recover. It can take up to 4 years for their bone mass to return to normal after they return to Earth. On Earth, gravity pushes blood downward in our bodies, while the heart pumps it back up. But in space, this process is disrupted and more blood can pool in the head than usual. Some of this fluid can build up behind the eyes and around the optic nerve, causing swelling. This can lead to changes such as decreased visual acuity and structural changes in the eye itself. These changes can start to appear after just 2 weeks in space, but the risk increases as you progress. Some of the vision changes reverse about a year after the astronauts return to Earth, but others may be permanent. Of course, there are psychological effects as well as physical ones. The feeling of isolation and confinement can harm the astronauts' mental health. Despite all of this, their work and contributions to space science have been worthwhile. And that concludes this week's headlines. From the escalating tension in the Middle East to groundbreaking space missions, these events are shaping the future. It was Hessel Weekly. Thank you for listening.